Blue Labour and the Thiel effect of how MAGA is making inroads into British politics. I'm going to read this fact and reportage piece here from Byline Times, you guys. So it says that the ideology of Make America Great Again movement, which has transformed politics in the United States, is having an impact in the UK. But how is this influence being transmitted? That's a very good question. I mean, I think a lot of it, there is definitely consistently a lot of conversation between reform right-wing influencers in the UK as opposed to those in the US, Republicans, right-wing influencers in the US there, as well as in other parts of Europe. We know Germany is also being as well from certain parties in Germany and other nations where these right-wingers are networking and working together to use and find ways to break the norms, shall we say, of politics. One of the things, obviously, is taking things of what's influencers have been doing. We know that reform have been incredibly. Nigel Farage, in particular, obviously, one of the most things he says is consistently on one of the things he's on Twitter. He's using social media very well. And they are very good at gaslighting the public into certain stories, which is causing people to take up arms when they hear about stories. They tend to dominate and try to take over and dominate conversations about what the topic of conversation is about. They're always looking to be the ones to make the conversation about them, about what they're talking about, or what their headlines are, and influencing the British public into always listening to what they're saying. Even if people vehemently disagree, it makes them the topic of conversation, the likes of reform and those and the influencers who are consistently talking about them, because they want all the spotlight, all the attention on them. And because the majority online and people, because they're constantly giving that, making headlines and saying things that aren't the norms or are out of sorts from that, if the mainstream media tends to respond to it too, rather than actually talking about some of the most important things in the UK in particular, for example, the cost of living crisis, they're pivoting to what Reform UK are saying because they are making all the noise. They are gathering the numbers of people to into them as well. And this is similar patterns, I would say, is what was doing in the US as well. Now even though I do cover US politics from time to time, I'm nowhere near in the weeds as those across the pond at all. But I would imagine that that's kind of a lot of things that they were doing there as well. But I'm very curious to see this one here. So this piece here is by Nafeen Ahmed and Peter Jukes here. So let's read what they've had to say from this on this here, guys. I'm going to probably mispronounce a couple of names on this as well. So if I do apologise. So Lord Maurice Glasman likes to visit what he calls a bike shed around the back of an upper chamber where he sits smoking roll-ups and shooting the political breeze. With his East End accent and affordable manner, he's happy to engage, ordering burgers and chips in the House of Lords canteen. He seems to know all the staff by name, who he treats like peers, rather than peers at the realm. And Lord Glasman may or may not appear to be unusually candid to enter the eye of the storm since Donald Trump's re-election in the US. Recently referred to as number 10's MAGA whisperer, The Times, as he was the only British lawmaker invited to Trump's second presidential inauguration on a freezing day, a January day in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. Glasman was invited there by a long-term contact, now the US Vice President J.D. Vance, who admired his writing about class and first approached him some years earlier, exploring whether the US Democrats could provide a new deal for workers. And in D.C., Glasman was overawed by the scale of the celebrations and the energy around Trump's Make America Great Again movement. So he sought out and sought after some of the most important Trump world movers and shakers. Steve Bannon, former Trump campaign manager and co-founder of Cambridge Analytica, the Dark Enlightenment thinker Curtis Yarvin, and as Byline Times can reveal, the tech baron and Palantir data founder Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is someone we've mentioned a few times on. We've covered Palantir and some of the work that they are doing as well. This would be an impressive list of American contacts to make in less than a year, but more unusual still, given Trump's well-known connections with Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, who Glasman regularly debates on GB News, or the long-established links between the US Republican Party and the British Conservatives, is that Lord Glasman has been a left-wing Labour peer for 14 years. as a founder of the Blue Labour Strategy, which promotes the blue-collar union origins of the Labour movement. Glasman has often swum against the New Labour mainstream. An early critic of globalisation, he dislikes the term diversity and rails against the way what he calls progressivism and replaced working class solidarity with rules and regulations. Glasman voted and campaigned to leave the EU in 2016 and decries the lanyard class of politicos and wonks. Though he believes the rule of law, he condemns the rule of lawyers. He's worked with Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff Morgan McSweeney to see off the threat of the far-right BNP in East London and the Noughties. But it does not appear concerned that a new far-right centred around revile race, science and big tech could be using him to add an air of respectability around their access to governing the Labour Party. Previous reports have detailed Glasman's appearance at Trump's second inauguration, having his portrait painted alongside Curtis Yarvin, and his appearance on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast. But for the first time, Byline Times can reveal that he was tasked by Morgan McSweeney to make contacts and connections in the Trump administration. And at first, he reported back almost daily to number 10. The newspaper can also reveal that at the inauguration, Glasman met Peter Thiel, whose company Palantir was recently awarded a $1.5 billion contract with the Ministry of Defence as part of the US-UK Tech Prosperity Bill announced by Donald Trump and the Prime Minister at a recent state visit. Glasman shared a cup of tea with Thiel while talking about AI as an area which he has avid interest in. Peter Thiel is no ordinary tech billionaire. One of the founders, along with ex-owner Elon Musk, of the payment system PayPal, he has become one of the most powerful Silicon Valley venture capitalists who have supported and benefited from Trump's administration. After becoming an early backer of Facebook and the founder of the data mining company Palantir, Thiel soon made his way into media and politics. He funded the legal case for the wrestler Hulk Hogan, which ended up destroying his once successful Gawker Medium site. Thiel also contributed to super PACs supporting Trump in 2016 after several Palantir staffers, including at least one senior employee, informally worked on the Steve Bannon now defunct digital campaign firm Cambridge Analytica. So when Trump entered the White House in 2017, Thiel appeared to be leaving politics, but he still had a hand in the media. As his biographer Max Chalvin revealed in Canteen, Peter Thiel and Silicon Valley Pursuit of Power. Thiel secretly seed-funded Critic, the Australian magazine that has specialised in giving race science a new gloss. And meanwhile, Palantir expanded its operations with numerous US government agencies supplying AI-driven systems for its lawfare against opponents and embedding itself in core government functions from the Pentagon to ICE deportations. Palantir's London office started growing too. Within weeks of Boris Johnson becoming Prime Minister in August 2019, he held a private, unmitigated meeting with him and his chief advisor Dominic Cummings, later exposed in leaked documents. Within months, Palantir was running the government's COVID data platform. By 2023, it has secured a 7-year contract to run the NHS new federal data platform worth between £330 million and £480 million. Depending on extensions, campaigners and Foxgrove described it as the largest NHS data deal ever signed. And I said at the time this would be bad. Come 2024 and Donald Trump's second bid for the White House, Thiel was back in his most powerful backer, mainly through his funding and the backing of J.D. Vance, who became, to the surprise of many, Trump's nominee for vice president in June 2024. Tech bros had made their choice. Trump's triumphant return at the election that year made Thiel the most powerful broarch figure in the MAGA blog, outstripping his fellow South African Elon Musk, who soon fell out with Trump, and the late converts such as Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg and Amazon's Jeff Bezos. Thiel's allies now predate Trump's inner circle. His protege J.D. Vance provides a direct channel from the Oval Office. Thiel asserts Jim O'Neill was installed as acting head of Centre for Disease Control and Prevention despite his lack of medical expertise. If his business and social connections of the second Trump administration were not enough, Thiel is already on the record as one of the most vocal critics of democracy, having avowed that in 2009 that I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. A devoured Christian, Thiel has recently appeared to believe that the world is about to face an apocalyptic moment. Yeah, we're still waiting for that. Touring various universities with his anti-Christ lectures, he wonders if climate activist Greta Thunberg might fit that category, including the UK, where, as Byline Times can reveal, his influence and funding extended. On the business side, a recent state visit by Trump to the UK sealed the deal for Palantir. A new strategic partnership announced by the Ministry of Defence will see Palantir invest up to £1.5 billion into UK defence AI innovation. Does this sound okay with you? No, I didn't think so. Establish its European headquarters in the country and help build cutting-edge military decision support tools, including blending surveillance with automation for the kill chain. So what did the founder of Blue Labour make of the chief Farage and its influence? So Glasman told Byline Times that his discussion with Thiel was mainly about how to stop big tech from driving more unemployment for blue-collar workers. Quote, I believe in big bloody AI everything, he said, for the whole natural system draped with the Union Jack. It was this fascination with AI, according to Glasman, that led him to the company of one of Thiel and Vance's favourable thinkers, Curtis Yarvin, previously known as Silicon Valley blogger, Menace Mulbug. Do have some funny names, don't they? If Palantir represents the hard power of Peter Thiel's interests, Curtis Yarvin appears to be an avatar of a more ideological soft power network, which arguably attempts to launder discredited race science into the mainstream under the guise of a contrarian post-liberal debate. Under this Fusilium Menace Mulbug, Yarvin described the Dark Enlightenment, a blueprint for dismantling democracy and national borders, and replacing them with a patchwork of thousands of corporate monarchies, each governed by a joint stick corporation which operates without regard to the residents' opinions. His writings are littered with the use of racial slurs and claims that Negroes are naturally inferior to the whites due to genetics, neurological differences. So if you didn't get what I just said there, it means he thinks that blacks are inferior. And essentially, he's a racist. Glasman met Thiel's court philosopher when Yarvin travelled to London for the February 2025 Alliance for Responsible Citizenship, ARC Summit. Trialed by documentary filmmakers, the pair spoke about their mutual fascination with John Ruskin. Glasman is a regular speaker at the Ruskin College in Oxford, who invested against the efforts of industrialisation on the aesthetics connection between the worker and the work. They discussed William Morris and the arts and craft rebellion against mechanical reproduction in a flat in Cable Street where Yarvin was staying, while an artist who happened to be present started an oil painting of the pair. According to the New Yorker, during his meeting, Yarvin showed Glasman how he had manipulated an AI chatbot into repeating the N word. Asked by Byline Times how he reacted when Yarvin used the slur, Glasman said he replied, if, and left shortly afterwards. They finished the painting, of which he has a photo on his phone. I didn't storm out or anything like that, he said. Obviously, I disagree with such language and the views behind it. Yarvin wants to be a rock star, but he doesn't do his homework. I think he's a something or not. A term that sounds overfamiliar and informal given the context. Glasman's willingness to engage with Yarvin around their shared interest in AI is indicative of how those with race science beliefs are being normalised, and Whitley are not in elite company. Glasman, better known as Yarvin, since before Trump's second term, and says he remains interested in his views on AI, and will continue to engage with him on the subject. Having returned to London in June, where he reportedly met Glasman again at the garden party on June the 23rd. And he told the FT Financial Times journalist Jamila Kelly that last night he was hanging out with Lord Maurice Glasman, who he called a charming fellow. And Glasman disputes the account, saying he wanted to meet but I couldn't make it. I spoke to him on the phone but I didn't fancy anything. And since he met Glasman, Yarvin continues to express his views on race. In a now deleted tweet from July of this year, preserved in the archives, he wrote this. And no, we only have one problem. The problem is our billionaire. You can say what he said there. They may be rich, but the nature and function of their wealth is profoundly negorous. You can probably name exceptions. I can too, but in every way that the exception proves the rule. So basically, he's just saying here when he's in his deleted tweet that once again, re-emphasizing that he believes whites and blacks are not equal. A nasty, nasty person. Despite this, Yarvin spoke on the panel about how the Light Gets In festival in London in September, hosted by the Institutes of Arts and Ideas. Glasman does not look up to people he meets in advance, preferring to take individuals as he encourages them. But had he done so, he would have seen that Yarvin's politics are inseparable from the so-called human biodiversity movement, a rebrand form of encantologist thought, rooted in research founded by the Nazi-aligned Pioneer Fund. Another of Yarvin's supporters is Steve Bannon. We've heard that name quite a few times before, who is also befriended Glasman at Trump's inauguration. Beyond appearing at Bannon's War Room podcast, the Labour Lord said he spoke about the former Trump campaign chief for several months after the inauguration, asked about Bannon's extreme views, such as the views on Islam and his support for the AfD in Germany, and he's claimed during a far-right rally in France in 2018 that the crowd shouted where accusations of racism, nazism and xenophobia as a badge of honour. Glasman distanced himself from such rhetoric. As the son of immigrants myself, I of course hate and disagree with these ideas, he said. But if we are to hold them off in Britain, we need a blue Labour movement based on nationalist industrial revival. Glasman was emphatic that he did not share Bannon or Yarvin's views on the issue of race, but believes Bannon is one of the greatest politicians of our age for his attempts to build a nationalist working class movement against mass immigration and globalisation. It's this crazy conspiracy theory stuff that they think that people of other colours or nationalities are taking over. It's crazy conspiracy stuff, guys. So with his Jewish heritage and long history of fighting the far right, it is increasing that Maurice Glasman overlooks the unfortunate historic combinations of nationalists and socialists and the worrying affiliations of his American friends. He's not alone in that. It is something Glasman shares with one of the key architects of the new Labour, Peter Mandelson. Mandelson, too, was a Labour contact for Thiel. Both he and Thiel were close to the disgraced financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. What a surprise, there's a connection there. I don't think anyone was expecting. Was anyone not surprised? Epstein was connected to Thiel through their co-investments in Valor Ventures, a value of which are $170 million, makes them the Epstein's estate largest assets. Mandelson's lobby company Global Counsel advised Palantir during the procurement process. And in February, the Prime Minister visited Palantir's headquarters in Washington, D.C. with its CEO, Alex Karp. A visit was arranged by the British Embassy in Washington when Mandelson was still the UK's US ambassador. It's understood that Glasman previously warned the UK government not to appoint Mandelson as ambassador due to his Epstein connections. He was sacked from the role by Keir Starmer over revelations about Mandelson's support for Epstein despite being convicted in 2008. However, the Labour government might hear the voice of Peter Thiel through other conducts about Glasman is connected to. Glasman met Yarvin through the Alliance of Responsible Citizenship, the ARC, a London conference co-founded by Canadian psychologist and author Jordan Peterson, and bankrolled by GB News investor Sir Paul Marshall. You've heard that name as well. He also owns the Unheard site and the Spectator magazine. Glasman sits on ARV's advisory board alongside right-wing thinkers Peterson and Douglas Murray, the Spectator's associated editors. ARC's advisory board also consists of pro-Trump Republican Congressman Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives and leader of the Republican majority, and Senator Mike Lee, chair of the powerful Energy and National Resource Committee. Thiel himself joined the ARC summit via live streaming in conversation with Jordan Peterson. Another Thiel protege is also on the ARC board, James Orr, as head of Reform's UK policy think tank. The Centre for Better Britain, or is known as J.D. Vance's British Sherpa, and plays a key role in shaping the party's programme. He hosted Vance at his home during the London visit in August and introduced him to the Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary and future Tory leadership hopeful, Robert Jenrick. You're seeing a pattern here, aren't you guys? Again, it re-emphasises that they're all in it together, aren't they? All as part of what Cambridge University sources have referred to as a Cambridge Thiel network. Right-wing academics and neutrals with support from Thiel's Capital Chief of Staff Charles Vaughan, who has made repeated visits to the campus. All invites Charles Murray, author of The Bell's Curse, to an online semester for Cambridge and Oxford in 2021. The Southern Poverty Law Centre designates Charlie Murphy a white nationalist extremist for his claims about race, IQ and genetics. Fellow ARC advisors Douglas Murray and Jordan Peterson were involved too, with all pushing for Peterson to speak at Cambridge as a visiting fellow. Peterson endorsed the Bell Curve's idea of cohesive stratification, while Murray has lambasted that almost nobody wanted to go over the evidence that IQ varies with ethnicity. ARC did not reply to Byline Times' request for comment. Asked about his fellow ARC advisors, Glasman told Byline Times, I have nothing to do with any of them. Jordan Peterson is crap. The reason I sit on the AIC advisory board is partly due to my interest in supporting the role of faith in public life. Maurice Glasman's own role in Lanyard class arguably includes his initial billing alongside former Labour MP John Crollis as leading the policy exchange think tank Future of the Left programme. Policy exchange has been central to Conservative policy making, and its new initiative is designed to influence Labour thinking by sending papers and proposals directly to Number 10. The director of the programme, academic Jonathan Ralford, told Byline Times that neither Glasman nor Cruddas are now operationally involved. But he has praised another organisation in which Glasman is involving as a board member, Civic Future, a leadership pipeline founded by Boris Johnson's former number 10 policy chief, Maurice. One of Civic's future sponsors is Emerald Ventures, a fellowship and grant program at George Mason's University Metellus Centre, which was launched in 2018 with $1 million from the Thiel Foundation. Its director, Tyler Cowles, a longtime Thiel ally who has called him one of the greatest public intellects of our time, also sits on Civic's Future's board alongside Glasman. Civic's Future's British backers are drawn from some of the Conservatives' most powerful donors, including Lord Michael Spencer, Lord Nash, Lord Anu, Walt Cullard. Alongside them is Lord Bamford, whose money has not only financed the Conservative Party but also Nigel Farage's Reform UK. A recent investigation by anti-extremist organisation Hope Not Hate revealed that the former government advisor Andrew Scabsey has been advising Civic Future. Brought into Number 10 as a senior advisor by Dominic Cummings in 2020, he resigned soon after it emerged that he had argued that black people are genetically disposed to lower IQ and suggesting compulsory contraception to reduce Britain's underclass. I have no words to describe that kind of person. These are the kind of people behind closed doors. That's frightening. Just incredibly frightening. Civic's Futures programme editor Jack Hudson was part of Scabby's SAB's central network of conservative policy thinkers. He said he wanted Scabby's reputation rehabilitated and that Scabby had been influential in Civic Future's founding, with several of its recommendation candidates joining it. Glasman told Byline Times he knew nothing about Scabby's role in Civic Future. When he asked Ms. Amoroso about the allegations, she claimed to be unaware. Civic Future and Policy Exchange did not respond to a request for comment. And while Lord Maurice Glasman's tolerance and friendliness are commendable, it is reasonable to suggest that his attitude to the right wing he spent his life combating appears concerning. His verdict on both Labour and Conservatives is bleak. On their current roles, Reform UK would eclipse them. Glasman talks regularly with Nigel Farage, a fellow GB News speaker, who he ranks with Bannon as one of the most influential political movers in this era. With this belief that the Labour Party under Keir Starmer is the same state of terminal decline as the Conservative Party, Glasman believes that Farage, who distanced himself from the likes of the far-right convicted criminal Stephen Laxey-Yellen, that's Tommy Robertson, is providing a backstop to the far-right in the UK. Dismissing the characterisation as a MAGA whisperer by the British press, Glasman acknowledged that the dangers that the country face, believing that British politics has to adapt before being overrun. The rise of this nationalist movement is of the working class is inevitable, he told Byline Times. It is up to us in Britain to push back to prevent being hijacked by these other disgusting ideas. Glasman discounts the risks that the conference, colleagues and think tanks he attends could be used instrumentally. Nonetheless, the possibility remains that rather than him gaining intelligence about MAGA, his new connections, Thiel, Yarvin and Bannon, previously joining his previous contact with Vance, may be using the association with him to normalise the channel far-right figures into the heart of British politics. Donald Trump and his backers have shown the most effective attacks on democracy do not necessarily come as coups or revelations. They creep through regulators, conferences, advisory boards, and procurement contracts. They look like openness, pragmatism, and patriotism, and even common sense. And often it is not conspiracy or even strategy that brings individuals together, but a convenience of shared interest and a joint belief that liberal democracy and globalisation have failed. The forces are beginning to replace it, driven by global tech monopolies and AI data extractions, led back down the road to a new kind of selfdom. This was a very good piece. And all these people influenced in some way, shape or form Glasman obviously seeing these people and distancing himself from them. It's very, very scary. The damage that they are doing. Didn't hear too much connections between these and German politicians there, but it's mainly between the UK and the US there. Our politics is being influenced by people who are not in the interest of the UK. That much is certain. You know, one of the term taking back control. That was a term that was used by Boris Johnson when it came to taking back control when it came on Brexit. We don't have control. We, the public, don't have the influence. The saying that we used to have. The media are pushing a narrative, as are certain politicians, as are influencers, into believing and thinking a certain way, rather than what we are hearing and seeing with our own eyes on our streets. It's not good. But I hope you found this piece very interesting. It did go on for quite a long bit, but I thought it was one that was worth diving into, about the connections that people have, that there are, the influences that people have. Because believe me, a lot of these people, they're only seeking their own interest in gains in power and influence, not for the benefit of us, the people. So what did you guys think of it? What did you guys make of this piece? I thought it was quite fascinating to read, but I generally want to hear your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments section below. Now, if you found this video interesting and informative, please hit that like button, share this across social media, subscribe if you haven't already. Do check out Rumble and Patreon for exclusive content. And if you reached the end of this video, type in Blaze in the comments below so I know you've watched till the end. And thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.